We have all heard it from one source or another. Just build more Panzer IVs. Or Stux, you hear that a lot as well, but in this video I'd like to focus on the Panzer IV aspect, so we'll ignore these in this video. So, right. Just build more Panzer IVs. Is it a potential war-winning strategy that they didn't want to use? I'm not going to say their name. Sorry, YouTube is iffy. But like, would it work? Would it work? Is the question. Could it change the course of history? Could it prolong the war for years to come? I don't know. Is it an illusion? Would it work? Who knows? How about we just explore this topic and we will see how it goes. What do you mean people think that Germany could have won the war just by building more panzers? They can't and they won't. If you look at this realistically, it boils down to 2 points. Quality and quantity. Because let me tell you, Tigers are really fucking expensive to build. Unlike the humble Panzer IV, which takes, you know, it's quite a lot cheaper. But Germany decided to build Tigers. And here's the thing. What if your quality doesn't hold up? Now, if we look at the Panzer IV, it's often compared to the German and T-34, but people compare it to the early war, T-34 and German, which did see combat until the end of the war, but they did have variants with much greater anti-tank capabilities. Sure, a Panzer could take out a German at, let's say, 1000 meters, which with its relatively thick armor of 80mm, it works against the 75mm M3 at those distances. But once the late war guns such as the 76 on the American side and the Russian 85 come into play, this advantage kind of falls off and the Panzer loses its advantages, and the late stages of war you have to put them like in the same capabilities bracket, so to say. So yeah, early stages, the Panzer IV had its advantages. Late war, I placed them pretty much in the same power bracket, so to say. Excluding like maintenance ease and supplying chains. That's like a whole other can of worms that I probably won't open in this video. Now the Tiger tank. Let's talk about the Tiger. Didn't actually have that much more armor than the Panzer IV. It had roughly 20mm more, give or take. And the main intrigue about the Tiger is its firepower. Again, early stage tanks with thinner armor could be taken out with this gun at 2 kilometers, 2000 meters. But it's pretty much the same with like the Panzer IV. Later stage war tanks, you could take them out, give or take 1.6 kilometers, up and down a bit. But the Tiger also loses its advantages of armor at the later stage, while costing a lot more. Sure, it had noticeably thicker side armor, definitely more frontal armor. But it's not like this wonder weapon or wunderwaffe to just take anything out at any range. That's not how a Tiger works. Sure, it had a high velocity 88mm gun, which did its job, but it wasn't like this ultimate tank killer that couldn't be stopped. It was just popping tanks left or right. Now we gotta talk about something that people, well, like the edgy 14-year-olds won't like at all. The soft factors. This like hard and soft factor is something I learned from Laserpig. And so essentially, I think I forgot to explain it. Hard factors is like the technical data, and soft factors are resupply chains, maintenance needs. And sure, German tanks were impressive in the hard factors, but they fall off incredibly quickly with the soft factors. The Panzer IV is a relatively old vehicle. It was designed in 1936, and its hull saw upgrades, but on the wrong aspects. They just kept adding to it and just kept making it heavier and bigger, and just one of the biggest issues the Panzer IV faces was its suspension. As per the usual with Germans, lack of fuel, lack of repairing tools, lack of ammunition, fuel. I think I said fuel already, but you get my point. And the Tiger is not much better, well, worse actually. It had those weird overlapping road wheels, which were a nightmare to change. Like, if you had to get to the most inner row of road wheels, you had to remove like 5 road wheels, 6. It was insane. And that isn't the only issue. It had incredible overheating issues, like cooling issues, so it just couldn't use the tank for long because it had to cool down. It was just over-engineered. It was expensive to make. But let's just say in a hypothetical. Let's jump to the like main intrigue of this video. What if we remove, let's say, 400 to 500 of the Tigers of the 1300 made, and just turn these into Panzer IVs? Having more tanks is not going to magically win you a war. Tanks require crew, ammunition, supply chains, which the Germans had essentially none of, at least not anymore. If we do some quick math, if we assume that you could build 3 Panzer IVs per Tiger tank, we get 1305. Each tank requires, well, 5 crew members. You need a driver, a machine gunner, a commander, a gunner, and a loader. Makes sense. But we'll have to take a few of these away. I assume that we will replace 450 Tigers, and so we also have to take away 5 crew per Tiger tank, which gives us 4500 tankers. And those tankers didn't exist. Tanks of the Germans were already partially undercrewed, and so you can't just magically manifest people. And even if we look at some of the tankers that were used, not just lighter vehicles like the Tldr Panzer IV, the Tiger loaders were children. Sometimes, not all of them, but they use children as like a loader of a Tiger tank. That is more or less simply the core of the problem. I'm not going to debate if Germany could have built more Panzer IVs if it didn't build Tigers. I'm more or less debating that it wouldn't have done anything for the war. It couldn't sustain more tanks, so it was more or less logical to have the tanks that you can sustain to be more or less better tanks. Tanks with more armor, with more firepower. Yeah, the Tldr was a thirsty beast, no doubt, but it doesn't take 3 times the amount of fuel. From my research, it takes roughly twice the amount. So, in my opinion, this is like a bad line of thinking where the people looked at like the allies, where they thought they just pushed out tanks in there, thousands, 10,000, and it worked for them. But Germany couldn't sustain such large tank numbers. So the logical step, what if we produce heavier tanks, which fit our current doctrine, which was at the time retreating and, well, defending, which the Tldr is better for than the Panzer IV, because it doesn't have to be as mobile. You aren't going to advance. You will always be heading towards your own line. You don't need to push into a city and move tens of kilometers to take the next ridge or whatever. For defensive tactics, the Tldr was fine, and some other tanks like the Ferdinand is a good example. It was like a good defensive tank. Maybe I'm just wrong, but I remember hearing something about the Ferdinand, which I really like. This resonates in my mind and lives in my head rent-free. Essentially what it is, the Ferdinand tank was an amazing tank and very powerful in combat, if it made it into combat. It's no German reliability issues, and I think you can say the same about the Tldr. It had excellent, well, it had good firepower, good enough armor, and here's the thing. Well, I already said this, I'm just repeating myself. They couldn't sustain a larger tank corps, so just have the tanks that you can sustain be better for the job you're trying to fill, for the mission you have, which is defending your own lines. And yeah, with that said, this is pretty much all there is to say. The numbers, it just doesn't work out in their favor, and no, it won't win them the war. So a short TLDR at the end. I feel like that's appropriate. No, building more panzers couldn't win the Germans the war. Far from it. Again, I personally think that it maybe drag it out by maybe a month or two, but it's inevitable they will lose. It mostly comes down to already strained supply chains getting even more strained with having to supply even more units. So having fewer units was a benefit. And with that said, that's where I'll end the video. And this is the first time doing like one of those like historical videos. I really enjoyed making this. So if you'd like to see something similar, or want me to cover similar topics, or well, anything really, just leave a comment and I'll look into it. And yeah, with that said, I hope you enjoyed your stay. I had way too much fun making this, and I hope I got most of the things right. Yeah, with that being done, I hope I see you next time, and yeah, Black Bear out.